This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Beyond the Harvest with Barbara Masterson. And I am excited about this because since I met Barbara and have learned about her art, I look at the food I put on my table differently. And that's a good thing. I don't take it for granted that I can go into the grocery store and get the produce that I need. There are laborers out there working very hard to plant the crops and harvest the crops, and usually we don't even think of them. So Barbara, thank you for your vision.
You're welcome.
So tell us a little bit about you and your art, and what made you decide to do something like this?
Well, I've been painting for many years, and I've always identified myself as a landscape painter who painted en plein air, and that just means painting on location. And so in 2015, I was on a local farm and painting, and the migrant workers came into view, and I thought, well, I'm just going to gesture them in. They're very interesting shapes and colorful shapes in the fields. And then I found myself timing myself, going to the fields, knowing which crops were being harvested and what time of the day they would be doing that. And so I actually began a relationship with them, because they got to know me and sometimes would help carry my equipment to where I needed to go. And so I followed them all summer long. And then when they left in the fall, I was devastated. I really didn't know which way to turn, because I had been working like that for so many years. And so something inspired me to start working in my studio again, and I started painting them individually, and my paintings got very large, and I continue to do that to this day. So this is 5 years in the making, and it's been a transformative experience for me, not only in my work but in my life, because I too did not realize how hard these people worked, and their lifestyle, and the whole thing. So that's how it evolved. And I thought I'd start maybe today by showing a couple of the landscapes, and that way you can get a feel for where I was and get a little history behind where I am now.
Okay, that sounds great.
Now, would that be better with my phone?
It may be. We can try that. So we are experimenting new things with this show. So if Barbara goes out into limbo land, but we see her paintings, that's the important thing, right?
Right.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do now is just go to the area in my gallery studio space that has those paintings.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
Here we go. Okay, so I have in front of me.
We can barely hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Aha.
Aha. I shall bring my laptop with me. And then you can hear me.
And then the video is not on your phone.
Okay. Oh, brother.
Well, it is connecting. It says it's connecting, so that's a good thing. Our podcasts are very true to life.
Okay. 'Cause, 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 Let's see.
Okay, we can see you now.
You can. Can you see my face?
I can see your face.
How do I change that?
There's a little circle at the top that reverses it.
Hmm. What if I?
Trying to see on mine. Yeah, it should be up in the upper right-hand corner, I believe.
No, there isn't. There are no icons up there.
Okay.
Ay, ay, ay.
As we said, Barbara is an artist. We don't talk about technology, so.
Oh dear.
Well,
maybe I'll just try to do it with my laptop.
You could try that, yeah.
Okay. You're going to have to let me know what you can see.
Absolutely, absolutely. So right now we have a lake and trees.
Okay. This is one of my pieces that was done plein air.
So is it in your area where you live?
Yes, yes.
Well,
although I do travel, and when I travel, I usually bring my paints with me. And so I do have some from other areas of the country, but the ones that I'm going to show you are from around here.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. It looks like a photograph.
Thank you. Here's another one.
So we're looking at some trees there.
Yep, this is in our barnyard.
Okay.
That's actually a cow path.
Oh, okay.
And then
the colors in that are beautiful.
On our farm, we have a 15-acre lake. And so I brought this big canvas. This is 3 foot square up there with my ATV, and the cows were very curious when I was painting this.
Do they come and nudge you while you're painting?
They are so curious. They would they would nudge the easel or me or the ATV.
Got it.
So from this point, this one that's below the fall scene, this is actually, I call this before they came.
That's all right. Oh, there, I see it.
And this is the last painting I did prior to the migrant workers coming.
So that's before seeds and things were planted?
Well, they were just laying the plastic, those blue lines are plastic.
Interesting. And look at all the birds there.
So anyway, from that, I'm going to bring you over here where these are, I have 3 of these left. This is when the people came into the fields.
Interesting.
They are picking on the ridge.
Oh, yeah.
And then this one I call the foreman.
And it's a true depiction of how hard they work. Many of us would not put in a day's labor like that.
No, we wouldn't. So in my studio, the following fall, I was confused and I didn't know what to do. And this is the first painting that I did. I pulled it out for this occasion. And this is 48 inches tall. Let me get back from it. And it's titled, "What Are You Thinking?"
I'd love to know.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Um, so anyway, so that's where that
So
is.
so when you did that painting, and I know some of your other paintings, you have talked to the migrant workers themselves to get their story behind um, their work. But when you did that, did you have something going through your mind of what you thought that worker was thinking about?
Not really.
Not really. Okay. I mean, after some of the discussions we've had and things I've read, looking at that worker, I would think, maybe they're thinking at the end of the day that, they're so far away from home and they've put in a long day's work. And, you know, instead of just going back to um, where they all are living, wouldn't it be nice to be able to go home and be with family, you know?
Yes.
So,
Yes, I'm sure.
and a lot of us don't think about that. We just, like I said in the beginning, we take it for granted that these workers come across the border. They do the hard work that none of us really want to do. Um, and then we don't appreciate them enough. So I'm so glad that your work is doing that. So when you do a painting of an individual, um, are they aware? Do you ask permission before you do it, or do you just take your paints and
Well, I always, first of all, ask permission of the farmers because I'm trespassing.
right?
And I want to make sure that I'm not intruding on their work. And then I ask the workers if I can take their photographs. And most of the time they say yes, but occasionally someone will say no. And I certainly, you know, don't take that picture then.
Right.
But it was kind of interesting. The first year that I was doing this, I was on a farm, and these young fellows, I asked them if I could take their pictures, and they all said yes, and so I did. And eventually I gave them a print of the painting that I did from those photographs. And the following year I came back, and there they were again, and I asked them if I could take their picture, and they said, a couple of them said no. Now I knew it wasn't because of immigration, because they were open the prior year with me, but I felt like I knew them well enough to ask them if it was because of who was in the White House.
Interesting. Yeah.
And they said yes. And so I did not take their pictures, but so whenever I see that particular couple of fellows, I wave to them, but I don't take their pictures. But yes, I always ask. And women, there aren't many women working in the fields, but when there are, many of them won't let me take their pictures. Now, I don't know why. I mean, it could be vanity, it could be for a number of
Sure.
religion, it could be a number of reasons. But so that's why there aren't very many women that I have painted.
I understand. So, where do most of these migrant workers that are coming to New York in your area, where are they mostly from? Are they usually from one area that are brought back up here?
Well, the farm that I go to most often, there's about a 50-50 split between a gentleman from Jamaica and a gentleman from Mexico. And they kind of self-segregate, and I'm sure it's language barrier, but
Sure.
they do work together, but in the barracks and where they live, they're kind of self-segregate. And because of I don't know Spanish real well, although we have fun trying to communicate, I think I'm closer with the fellas from Jamaica. And two of them actually call me to this day from either Jamaica or wherever they are. They were on this farm for 1 year, and that's when I got to know them. And their names are Vincent and White. And I actually did a painting of them. And since then, I've painted Vincent probably 10 times, and white a couple of times. But, you know, they call me from the farms that they are working in New York State, usually too far for me to travel,
Sure.
more a couple of hours and then in the western part of the state. And we chat about, well, White likes to talk about politics. and and last year Vincent came to harvest apples, and he had an appendicitis attack,
Ooh.
and he had to have his appendix out, which led me to the thought of, now who is paying for that and who's taking care of him? And of course these are unanswered questions that I have, but it's another part of their existence.
And, you know, and since we started talking a couple months ago when you were on Ken's show, um, you know, I look at people differently. I mean, and I'm proud of myself that I look at them differently, because in the past I just made assumptions that basically that we would hear on the news or through political conversations. And on the weekend, I'm an IT rep, and the store that I work at, there's a lot of Mexican immigrants in the area. And they all seem to live in one house with, and there are many in their family. So
Mhm.
father, the aunts, the uncles, whatever. And I didn't quite understand this. And one of the coworkers there, I said something to her because she's the one who can relate to them and she speaks Spanish. And so if somebody comes up and doesn't understand me, I just refer them to her. And she was saying that they are all migrant workers, but they've pooled their
Oh,
money and they live here in Cleveland. But during the harvesting season, they're not in Cleveland. They're out on different farms. And she said it took a long time for them to come together like that. And when I now see them, um, I'm very impressed. You know, they've left their country. They left a lot of things behind, but they have found a way to make a home here. They've all become American citizens,
mm,
which, you know, I'm impressed with. And yet
yes,
they're willing to work these long, hard hours. And I know they're not making much. You know, it's
yeah,
so I ask our viewers, would you do what they do? You know, and that'll be interesting if some of your listeners will let us know. Would they work as hard? Um, and can we appreciate them a little bit more, especially come Thanksgiving when we have, you know, pumpkin and squash and things like that on our tables? You know, where do they all come from?
right. And also the meat packing companies.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things. You talked about apples. New York is known for their apples, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
So
Yes.
I find that interesting. I didn't know that until I came to visit my brother one day up in Saratoga Springs, and they took us to this apple orchard, and I it was just amazing how huge it was, and how many different kinds of apples that I had never heard about. Um, do you know what the origin is? How New York became this apple state?
I really don't.
Okay,
And
okay.
I should probably.
Well, and because you had talked about them, you know, working in the orchards, I just was curious. So when you meet one of these workers and they agree to have you take their picture and paint their picture, do they come back to see it when you're done? Or
Well, what I generally do is once I finish a piece, I photograph it. Uh, I have my web person photograph it for my website. And with that, I have a print made, and then I go back and try to find the worker who is in the painting. And they get a copy of that. And they seem amused. They seem amused. I mean, the Jamaican fellas are definitely amused. I mean, in a nice way. I wonder if they wonder what's wrong with this woman who keeps painting them. But yeah,
But every painting tells a different story, even if it's the same person that you keep
yes,
painting, because you don't always paint them exactly the same.
right, correct.
Yeah. So, is it what your vision is at that moment when you go to paint that you see this person a certain way?
Yes, yes, because when I'm taking photographs, it's not like they're posing specifically for a formal photograph. I'm shooting with my phone, and it's random shots. It's just all random shots, and then I go through all the images, and sometimes I will take um, 5 or 6 photos and combine them in a drawing, and then make a painting out of that, and it will be actually. Um, I have one very large painting that has 11 figures in it, and it's actually only 3 men that I've captured in different positions. And so the challenge for me was to make the viewer believe it was different figures, and all placed in the right perspective in the field, to make the person believe that it's 11 people were there at the same time.
So, I know you've got your studio. I know you have your website, which will be listed uh, when we do the shows, so people can get out to the website, take a look at what you
Mhm.
have. Uh, I know you've been in galleries. What is what do you want to see happen with your paintings?
Well, ultimately, what I try to do is I try to find large venues where I can put a number of works, so people can get a sense of the message. Because one painting in a show that has a lot of other things, still lifes and landscapes, it's not a strong statement. So my goal is to try to get the work out in, large capacities. Not large, I don't know, 10, 15 pieces. I had a show last summer, and I had 60 pieces, which was a massive show to mount. But it was very well received, and people got the message. So,
Well,
so that's my goal.
yeah. So if somebody comes out to your website and sees um, a painting that they really, really like, it's something that they really want to own, can they purchase it directly from you?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's important because I want people to understand that yes, it's an art and you're going to display them, but there's also you'd like to sell them, and I know some people. In fact, I have a friend who's a painter who refuses to sell anything. She has no room in her 2-bedroom condo for anything. Okay. um, but they're her babies, they're her possessions.
Mhm.
So she'll show them, but she won't sell them. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. Well, I think the way I am emotionally connected with these pieces is, after I paint one, I like to have it around for a while. And I live with it, and I usually will bring it to my living space, not my studio space, so I can see it, unless it's a 6-foot painting, which I can't put any place here. Um, so I like to live with them, but at a certain point, I'm ready to let it go. There was one painting that I sold many years ago that I had just completed. It was barely dry, and somebody wanted to buy it, and I sold it. And I was kind of sad about that. But so
Well,
that's the way it is for me. I have to be a little emotionally away from creating it.
absolutely. So I know you live on a farm, but you
Hmm.
haven't lived on a farm your whole life. Um, Tell me, is there a difference in your creativity out in the farm than maybe when you lived in the city?
Um, well, I lived in a small town,
Okay,
and I think my work now is more focused.
interesting.
I
So,
mean, we have quite a bit of land, and it's actually beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of property.
So you can be more focused because there's plenty of place to basically escape to also to see
Yes.
the beauty of the land and be away from everybody if that's what you need for your paintings.
Yes.
And I can see that happening. Okay. Um, in fact, I was writing a blog yesterday and my husband was sitting in the office and when he is on his computer, even though he sees me working, he talks to himself. So I keep thinking that he's talking to me. And I'm writing this blog, and then my son came in to kept asking me questions. And it was like, why am I doing this today? Tomorrow's a better day, but I had this idea and I wanted to put it together. And luckily, I have not posted it because I'm not sure it's coherent. So I can see being out on the farm gives you that, little bit of isolation, private time to reflect.
Yes. And typically I paint uh, I'm in my studio by 5 o'clock in the morning, so everything is quiet here except the roosters. And I paint for as long as I possibly can, both physically and emotionally, and then go out and do what I have to do otherwise. So it's a very focused time.
So if somebody is listening to this and they say, boy, I'd love to follow in Barbara's footsteps. It sounds like, it has a lot of meaning. How would you suggest they could even get started?
You
Whether,
mean starting to paint?
well, starting to paint and starting to be focused on something that has real meaning. I mean, there are people who can paint landscapes with no people in it and they'll be beautiful, like your lake. It's absolutely beautiful. But when you are painting the migrant workers, it's more than just painting them. You're telling a real story in their faces and their posture.
Well, thank you. Well, what I've always said is that people should follow their heart and follow their passion when they're painting, and not follow any trends or paint this way because someone else is painting that way. And I think if you follow your heart, your work will develop. And if you paint every day, your techniques and your skill will get stronger. And so that would be my recommendation to it. I mean, if someone wants to be a painter, they need to get painting and drawing and draw and paint from life. That's an important part. I mean, I know when I was a little girl, I copied things, and I was in 8th grade. I would look in an encyclopedia and copy a Winslow Homer painting, which is a good way to start, but you don't want to be doing that 50 years later.
Well, absolutely, because are they going to really buy your copy of
Yeah.
somebody else? I mean, there are some people who will, but
Mhm.
that's not what you're going for. You're going for your own creativity. And it's interesting that you say that because when my brother was very young, he started doing caricatures. And,
Mhm.
um, we all thought he was going to be, a painter, an artist, whatever, for the rest of his life. And he is an artist with music, but he doesn't draw or paint anymore. And I one day asked him why, and his comment was because I was copying all those characters. And as a kid, I didn't know they were copied. I just thought they were his. But once he realized that, it was like, no, I can look at something and I can copy it. He said, but what fun is that anymore? So he wanted to have his own creative juices. What kind of paints do you use? Are you watercolors, oils, acrylics?
For my paintings, I use oil paint, and I like Gamblin oil paints, to give them a little plug. Uh, and then for my drawings, I use a pencil called a Wolf pencil, and it's a combination of graphite and charcoal. And I discovered that couple of years ago after seeing a Charles White exhibit at the Modern in Manhattan and seeing his beautiful drawings of human beings. And I said wolf pencil, and I thought, what is this? Well, it's yummy. So the drawings that I have done are with that medium.
And I see a couple behind you in black and white. Are those the drawings?
Yep, and then there's some over here.
Oh, okay. Ah, how nice.
I'm sure you're getting all kinds of
Yeah,
reflections.
but you know what? That's okay. We're getting an idea, and we can always go on your website and take a look too. Wow.
These are the 12 men that I know the best. And I did these drawings through a grant that I received from Arts Mid-Hudson, which is a decentralization organization. Well, it's an art organization, but it decentralizes the funding. And so I was able to propose that I do the drawings of the 12 men that I know the best. And I wanted to put text in with them. But once I did the 12 drawings, I looked at the drawings and I liked the negative space so much that I didn't want to compromise that. So I created a little booklet with the drawings in it, and then I have the text at the bottom of the image so people can ask themselves.
Well, and I have a copy of it, and I will tell you, I think on one of our shows, what we should do is talk about some of those. And maybe create our own imagination who that person is, or how they are like somebody that we know. Again, I can't tell you how this has changed me, and I'm hoping it's going to change your podcast audience. I want people to look out and say, hey, the person who farmed the land, who tilled it, who made lettuce as wonderful as my salad is today, was a hardworking individual, and most likely they were a migrant worker. And I need to be thankful for them, because I'm surely not going to go out into the land and create, plant my own food. I probably should. That would be a good thing. But most of us aren't going to do that. And like I said, looking at them in a different way. So what if they don't speak English, or don't speak English well? That's not their natural language. So we have to come together and be more giving and willing.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think the comment that you shared in the beginning, that some of these workers didn't want their pictures taken, didn't want to be part of this because of the president. That goes a long way to tell us that, we have to be nicer to each other.
Yes.
Because if these farms didn't have migrant workers, could we have even a fraction of the bounty of food that we have today? I don't think
No,
so.
no, we wouldn't at all.
So you are doing something, as far as I'm concerned, that is so educational and needed, because we don't talk about this in our schools either.
No, we don't.
So before we end today's show, let's talk about what really got you interested as a little girl. Like you said, you were about 12 years old and you were copying pictures. Was there somebody who mentored you, who saw that this is something that you were good at and should do, or did you just pick it up on your own?
Well, my dad took some of these copy paintings to a local gallery and art school, and the original gentleman who started it, his name was John Gould, and he was an illustrator. And he's well known in our area, perhaps other areas as well. But when I was old enough, I would go there on Saturdays and, learn from him, and his sons also taught. And then when I went to college, I told my guidance counselor that I wanted to paint, and they said, "Oh, well, you should take up computers."
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I think my family felt the same way. But I did. I went to school to learn how to paint, and I got an associate's degree down in Yonkers at a girls' school, and then I finished my degree at SUNY New Paltz.
And it's interesting because you and I are somewhere in that same age range. When I was going to college, I wanted to go into broadcasting, and my parents said, "No way, no, you're going to be a teacher. You don't have a choice." And I enrolled into the broadcasting curriculum. I was living away from home, so I figured they were never going to find out. And it had an associate's degree. And when I completed after 2 years and came home and said, "Well, I have my associate's degree now," um, my parents pulled the plug on me continuing because
Oh, gee.
they thought they had wasted their money.
Oh, boy.
And I look back at them, back at that time, and this was, I was going to college, 1968 to 1970, and to some degree, they were right. They didn't see that future for me. But when I
Yes.
went back to school and completed my degree 10 years ago, um, I'll never forget when I graduated. I said to my mother, "I now have my master's in communications." And she looked at me and she said, "Well, it's about time."
Yeah.
No, um, but following what you wanted to do, following your passion, and your father, being supportive,
Hmm.
it had to have been extremely helpful for you.
I think so. I think so. It was a good start for sure.
Absolutely. So, do you see yourself this coming year, hopefully with COVID slowly going behind us? I'm hoping that you'll be able to get back out in the fields and do some more migrant workers, or do you have another vision in mind?
No, I would really like to get back into the fields. Obviously, because of COVID, I was not able to see them as often as I would normally see them during a season, and most of them are gone at this point.
Right.
Um, so I'm hoping not only to get out to see them and uh, photograph them again and paint them, I'm also looking forward to exhibiting the work. I have, believe it or not, I have 2 solo shows lined up for next year, and that's a positive thing to think about, because
Absolutely.
right now it's, as you know,
Yeah. Well,
most difficult.
everything is it's pretty locked down right now, but
Mhm.
if I want to believe the news, and I'm having a little bit more faith each day that there is a vaccine coming, and slowly we will get back to being able to do the things that we want to do and need to do. So tell everybody, how can they reach you if they want more information on your paintings?
They can reach me through my website, which is www.barbaramasterson.com. There's a contact sheet in there, which also gives my mailing address and my phone number.
Well, and we hope everyone will do that. We will be back with Barbara again in 2 weeks. And what I hope to do is, you know, go through the pamphlet a little bit, and let's
Mhm.
talk about the different paintings in there. And, um, I'm going to look at it more closely, and um, I'm going to make some notes about what I see in the paintings. And then I'm going
Uh-huh.
to ask people you know, to go out to the website and look at some of your paintings and tell us what they see and how it moves them, because there's so much for us all to learn. and I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, have a happy Thanksgiving. And for everybody who's listening, please stay safe and wear your mask when you need to wear your mask and social distance. And um, hopefully in 2021, Barbara will be in a gallery where we can all come and see her paintings in person. That sounds wonderful.
Sounds great.
Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.